The Catman from Wahoopiville. Well, folks, I'm sitting out here on my porch. It's hot today, so I'm sipping on a beer and smoking a good cigar. I rarely smoke, and I don't even inhale. It's kind of a waste, I guess. But I do love the smell of a good pipe or a good cigar. Don't know why, I always have. I have me a cigar about once a month. And while I was sitting out here relaxing, my mind floated back to the summer of 1974. I was 12 years old, and that's when it all happened. It's unbelievable. In fact, my nephew begged and begged me to tell this story. Record it, write it down, something like that. I said, well, I could write it down. There's so much of it, though. Why don't I just, record it? So he set me up, and here I am. 12 years old, southern Oklahoma. Biggest time of the year was coming, which was the rattlesnake hunt. And I was just fascinated by that carnival or ceremony or whatever it was. And I, going out and hunting because they gave prizes out for the biggest snake, the littlest snake, the heaviest snake, longest, shortest, all that kind of stuff. And who can sack them up the fastest, all that, who caught the most, that kind of thing. Money prizes, So I went out and did my best, and I never got much, never won nothing, but it was a lot of fun. And the rides and the food and the games and seeing the carny people. It was fascinating for a 12-year-old boy. I was excited, and it was just a couple weeks away. Well, uh, I was coming back from my buddy Mike's house late one summer night. I was a heathen kid. My mama used to call me a heathen all the time. I'd stay out past, when the street lights come on, which was a strict rule, but she stopped whooping me for it because I did it night after night after night, especially in the summer. So anyway, I was coming back and I was walking along a fence line about a block and a half away from my house, and I know I looked up because I heard some growling and hissing, and there must have been 12 cats sitting up there in the trees, on the branches, on the fence. I mean, they were all looking at me, watching me, and big old thing, big as bobcats, fierce looking cats. And so I stepped it up a little bit, and then one of them, I guess he was a leader because he was big. He jumped off of there, landed on my back. I was screaming and hollering and running and swatting at that thing, and he was just biting and scratching, snapping at me, and I finally got him off and just hightailed it back to the house. I was only about a block away or so, and then I heard some laughing off in the distance from back from where them cats was, and it scared me. So there was a human laughing at me. I guess it was the owner of them cats, that them cats was, protecting his property or attacked an innocent kid. I don't know what was going on, but it scared me pretty good. And I was mischievous, I'll be honest with you. And so I thought, well, I'll get him back, somehow, some way. I'll put a stink bomb on his porch or something, so I went home, cleaned up, went to bed, and was thinking about all the things I could do. And bright and early the next morning, there's no school. I started coming up with a plan. I told Mike about it, and then we went over there and scouted out his yard, and we tried to find out who he was. He hadn't moved in there but 2, maybe 3 weeks before. Supposedly, some old professor man all the way from out on the East Coast. They say he was from Yale or something, a retired man. Now, what he was doing in, Wahoopiville, I have no idea what a retired professor would be doing there. Some said, he had relatives in the area going back decades ago, and he just decided to come back to this sort of pseudo home for him. And so we devised a plan to get him. We pretended to be Boy Scouts, selling magazines. We brought some magazines over that we gathered up, you know, from around the area. His mama was a teacher, so she had all kinds of literature and brochures and magazines and things. So we brought some of them over and pretended like we were selling magazines or something, And he answered the door on the first knock. We didn't even get to rap twice. I mean, we barely touched the wood on the side of his door, and he snatched that door open. There he was. Not a big man, maybe 5'10", slender. Had a hat on in the middle of summer in his house, and I didn't know what that was all about, and just the evil look on his face. He said, "What do you want?" And I said, "Sir, we were selling magazines." He said, "I don't want nothing." And he slammed that door shut right in our face. And I thought, well, that seals the deal. I'm gonna get this guy, And so we gathered up a whole. This is terrible. I can't believe I'm telling you all this. We gathered up a whole bunch of dog poo. You know what I mean? And put it in a brown sack and sprinkled it down with some charcoal lighter fluid and waited till it got dark, snuck up on his front porch, and we wasn't going to knock on the door because we knew how. I don't know if he had great hearing or he could see us or what, but we lit it on fire from a bush around the corner and threw it up on the porch, you know. And he snatched that door open, pushed the screen door open, and I mean, there was a herd. It had to have been 15, 20 of these big house cats that were like bobcats in size and speed, eh, tearing out, coming right for us. We ran like the wind, and they were hissing and yowling and screaming, and they were right on our tails. And we heard him cussing and hollering, and he says, "I'll get you boys." And we tore out, we lit out, went to Mike's house, and went up in his tree house because we didn't want to go to, in his house. Them cats might liable to scratch up the door. Who knows what happened? We climbed up that tree house, and land sakes, if they weren't climbing up that tree. So we got some big sticks and stuff, and they were trying to come in the windows. I mean, did this guy train these cats to be killer cats or what? I scared us to death. We fighting them cats off for a good half hour before they finally realized they weren't going to get to us, and they all went down and hissed and yowled and took off. Uh, so we thought better of, you know, pranking that old man. We started calling him the Catman, because evidently that's what he was. He had all them mean cats. And so, it was the morning of the rattlesnake hunt. I was so excited. Man alive. Mike and I went down there and we were playing all the games. We were watching the men wrangle up them snakes in sacks, and one of them got bit. Sad to say, I was excited. I was like, "Oh my gosh, that man's gonna die," but he didn't. He They took him off to the hospital in the ambulance. He got a bunch of shots, antivenom, I guess, and he's all right, just sick as a dog for about a week. But anyway, we had a blast riding the rides and eating all the cotton candy and popcorn, everything else, and before we knew it, the sun went down, and it they had plenty of lights on down on Main Street, and the carnival, the festival just kept on going. We had a good time, and then we were shocked. We looked over to the side of the carnival where there was some woods, a lot of trees, but it was right up next to the main street, and there he stood, the cat man, about 5, 6 of these big old cats sitting right beside him, and he was glaring right at us. Oh Lord of mercy, we were scared. So we went the other way, and making our way home, I was a little bigger than Mike, so I said, "I'll just in case," because he lived 2 blocks from me. I said, "Just in case, I'm gonna walk you home, make sure you're all right, and then I'll borrow your bike and ride fast back to my home." He said, "Right." He said, "Okay, man, thanks." He was scared of that cat man. I was scared of him too, but Mike, up in that treehouse, he had tears in his eyes. I could tell. But he was 11. I was a big 12-year-old, so I guess there was a little bit of difference. I don't know. But anyway, so we got home when no problem. We got to his home, no problem. I grabbed his little Schwinn bike and hauled butt back about halfway home. Cats coming out the side of the street, jumping at me. I mean, I was flying. I was riding as fast as I possibly could, and they were keeping up. Almost got me, scratched me several times on my legs. I was wearing shorts like a dummy. Scratched me several times as I passed. I was terrified, and I could hear that cackling laugh, and I could hear him say, "You're getting what you deserve, boy," And I rolled up into my house, threw that bike down, ran in. They were still on my tail. Shut the door just in time before several of them just bang, slap, smack right into that door. Terrified me. And Mama was sitting at the kitchen counter. She says, "Land sakes, what's going on?" I said, "Mama, there's a wild bobcat out there. Don't go out there." I didn't know what to tell her. So I went back in the bedroom. I got a little single shot 22 and single shot shotgun, and I got that. And she said, "Don't you shoot that thing out here in town." I said, "I'm not, Mama, just in case they can get in." And so I sat there by the door until it must have been 30, 40 minutes before they left. There was, I don't know, a dozen of them, pacing back and forth on the porch, scratching at the door, looking in the window. I had that shotgun. I kept yelling at them to leave, and they finally did. I guess it was half hour, 45 minutes later when they knew they couldn't get in. But land sakes, man, they knew where I was. They knew where I lived. Anyway, that night, uh, we had a swamp cooler. Y'all probably don't know. It's just them air conditioner that use water, cool the house. It didn't cool it like a real air conditioner, but it kept the place cool. But the problem is that you could talk right through it and you could hear right through it, because there wasn't much to that machine. It was pretty much hollow on the inside. And long about midnight, I hear this voice. I'm asleep, but I wake up to this voice. And my little brother's on the other side of the room, a little farther away from the window. He's, out like a log. He wasn't about 8 years old. They sleep like the dead. And he said, "Boy, I'm gonna get you," through that air conditioner. And it had that, because the air conditioner was going, or the swamp cooler was going, and it was reverberating. It sounded as creepy as it could be. And this old man out there, and I hear the cats hissing and growling. And he says, I'm going to get you, boy. I was scared to death. Pulled the covers over my head. I didn't go get mama and daddy, nothing. I couldn't move. I was frozen. I couldn't believe this old man was outside my window talking through that swamp cooler, scaring me to death. You know, he says, your time is limited here on this earth, boy. I mean, the man was threatening to kill me. Probably going to be eaten alive by them damn cats. So, anyway, I slept in, probably for me, slept in. It was probably 8 o'clock, ate breakfast, and I called over to Mike's and I said, Mike, you're not going to believe what happened to me. And I told him. And he says, oh my gosh, John, what if he knows where I live? I said, well, he probably does. But since I'm older and kind of been leading this expedition, he's probably after me first. So um, we devised a plan that we were going to take the fight to him. We watched some John Wayne movies and stuff like that, and we got our gumption up and we built a trap on the corner going to my house from his house to my house on the route on the sidewalk. And so we dug a hole and put some spikes in it off to the side, where nobody ever walked, nobody even mowed because it was all dirt, and it was right up underneath the tree. And we made a quick way to get up there and get down there using kind of a zip line technique heading toward my house. And it was quite elaborate. It took us 3 days to get this worked out. Um, and so we finally got done, and so we went to the side of his house, not the front, the side where all the cats would hang out in the trees and up on his fence. And we was throwing rocks at them. They were hissing and hollering. Evidently, he gave them some command. It was like a click hiss command. Sounded weird, and they all came at us. And so we ran and ran, got up that tree, and we avoided obviously the hole where we had the trap, and there was some spikes up on the tree, and we were kind of bad. We had razor blades and everything. Um, we got up in that tree and we waited till they hit all that stuff. We heard the hollering and the hissing. They were getting stabbed and cut and everything falling down, and they started running back. We zip lined back to the house. It was only about 20, 30 feet. It wasn't much of a zip line. Probably dangerous, but anyway, we got in my house. Mike had already arranged to spend the night, and lo and behold, it wasn't an hour later. It wasn't but about 10 o'clock at night. My folks had just gone to bed, thank God, and there he was outside talking in that swamp cooler again. He said, "You hurt my cats. Now I'm gonna hurt you." And I heard him growl. I heard the cats hissing and hollering and beating against the wall, but I heard him growl. And the water cooler shaking. He was pounding on it, and he literally ripped that water cooler out of the wall. And I jumped up, slammed the window shut. Thank goodness it still worked, wasn't cut. My dad come running in there. He had his 357 Mac. He thought somebody was trying to break in the house, steal his kids or something. I don't know. And he saw that old man out the window. He said, "You better get gone, crazy man." And that dude, the lights was on at this time. My dad hit the switch as he come in, and that man opened his mouth, and it was full of cat teeth. And my dad freaked out and shot at him. And I think that man was too fast. He was an old man, gray hair and everything, but he tore out of there. I don't think he got hit. My dad said, was cussing, and He was in the military, so he let it fly, you know. And he said, "What in, the blazes going on, son? What was that?" I said, "Sir, that's a man from down the block that just moved in. You know, the professor man from back east." He said, "What in the hell did you do to him?" I said, "Dad, I didn't do nothing. He sicked them cats on me about 4 times already, scaring us to death. He came to my window last week threatening to kill me." He said, "Why didn't you tell me anything? We could have went to the sheriff." I said, "Well, Dad, I was too scared." He said, "Well, we're going to the sheriff tomorrow. And right now you're fixing that window. You go get a piece of board out in the garage." I said, "Yes, sir." And so we nailed up the window, and I finally calmed down about Mike and I calmed down about 1, 2 o'clock. Finally got some sleep, you know, and thought we were going to be protected with that plywood. I guess we was, 'cause the sun, before we knew it, sun was up. Dad was getting us up. We had pancakes, and immediately after went down to see the sheriff. Told him what happened, and so he had us come with him. A couple of police cars, and he went up and knocked on the old man's door. There was no answer, and there was no cats, and so he said, "Well, I can't go in until I get a warrant, so y'all stay here." He went down to the judge. This is a small town, so he just went down to the judge signed a warrant, and because there was bullets fired. You fire a gun, they got to check into it, that kind of thing. And they didn't know if the old man was dead or what, so they had to go in the house to see if he was all right. you know so they go in there, and the place was kind of a mess. I didn't see it. I wasn't allowed to go in, but my dad was allowed to go in, and he told me there was a horrible, horrible cat smell. The urine smell, the poop smell, and mess, and cat litter boxes that were all full, and but there was no sign of the old man or the cats, and most of his belongings were still there. There was no sign of blood or anybody got hurt, and so that was the end of it for 3 or 4 days. And so I'm there sleeping. It's a Friday night, and my folks are gone. They're down, at the local bar drinking, and it's 10:30 or so at night, and there's a scratching on that plywood over my window. It was hot in there now because I didn't have a swamp cooler or nothing to keep me cool. And oh, my land sakes, scared me to death. And I heard him whisper. He says, "You're mine now, boy." And he started banging on that. Of course, I grabbed my little brother. We ran out, locked the bedroom door. I grabbed my shotgun. My little brother had the 22. We made sure they was loaded. We was out in the hallway, and our brothers and sisters joined us because all the ruckus. And I said, "Go in the kitchen and get big knives," And uh, I heard him climbing through that window, and the cat's rushing in, and he's growling and hollering. He's scratching at the door, and lo and behold, thank God, my dad, who's a big man, comes in the house, and they're laughing and joking, and they see us all there, and the guns and knives, and we're screaming and hollering, and my dad gets his 357. He don't care. He opened that door, and there was that old man, and he just started firing. I mean, just lit. He was shooting cats, and that cat man, he was just letting them have it, and they were all diving out the window. And land sakes, it was a mess. Nobody could believe what was going on. I didn't get to see it all because he was in the way. He's a big old man. I bet he weighed 300 pounds. But they were all diving out the window, and once again, my dad saved the day. Brave man. Lord, that scared me to death. Just watching it scared me to death. And I don't know what it was. People call them kind of people cryptids, or hybrids or science experiment. I don't know what he was, but he wasn't all human. He partly human. I think that's why he wore a hat, because he had sort of like cat ears, pointy ears or whatever. Because I seen that night. Finally, he didn't have his hat on, or it fell off when he was coming in the window. Big old teeth, and I just got a glance at it. He was jinking and jiving. My dad, good shot, but he couldn't hit that fast, old man. And they were out the window and gone. It is scary. And of course, my dad had my mama call the sheriff and come over, and sheriff looked at all the scratching on the plywood, and bullet holes everywhere, and tufts of fur, and there was one dead cat, and it was a big old cat. Dad, I guess, hit one of them, and so he went back over. The sheriff went back over to the Catman house, and he wasn't there, and so evidently the man was living out in the woods or something, you know, because there was a foul smell in that room, from them animals and him or whatever. I don't know. It was an awful smell, and I thought that would be it. I mean, second time getting shot at, police investigating, all that. You'd have to be crazy to try to come after a little boy like that. But I was wrong. School started, and life was back to normal. This was 3 or 4 weeks, and then in little boy time, that might as well be 10 years. I'd forgotten about most of it. My dad put reinforced bars up on my window, you know, and just to make sure they couldn't get in anymore, you know, and so I could sleep, because I was scared to death. I was sleeping, right outside my mom and dad's bedroom for several days after that. I was just terrified, you know. Anyway, I was at school one day, and we were having a program, like a welcome back program. We had been practicing over the summer about small little skits, basically like a talent show kind of thing. And I got up and, performed my hand ceremony. Old man in town taught me how to play the hands. It's kind of hard to explain. You just use, it's what people used to do way back in the day. They, um, it's like a popping sound you use with your hands, and they used to do it at barn dances, that kind of stuff. And I was decent at it, and people thought it was funny. They laughed at me, but I didn't care. And people were singing and telling jokes and doing little skits, and it was a lot of fun. But the sun went down, and I went to the bathroom at the back end of the school with my buddy Mike. Went in the bathroom, did our business, washed our hands, on our way back to the show, you know, get some more punch and watch the skits and whatnot. And behind us, we looked, they all got glass doors. It was a entrance in that far back end, mostly for the maintenance guys, I guess, because no students ever went in and out of there. But there he stood, and he had a dozen or more of them cats all around him, and he was tapping on that glass and hissing, showing his teeth. And I was terrified. My dad was at home. We didn't have nothing but the teachers. And, they didn't have no weapons, and I was terrified. Oh my goodness. And Mike and I, tried to call home and have somebody come get us, and they said, "You got your bikes, just ride home." We didn't want to tell them, you know. I told my dad um, that it was the cat man. He said, "Well, why didn't you say that?" And he tore out. He got in his truck and peeled out and come up there, called the sheriff before he left. The sheriff and my dad and everybody was there. All had weapons and rifles and whatever. They saw the tracks and some scat laying around where he was. And so That was just the most awful feeling that he knew which school he knew where the school was and where I was going to be. I don't know if he had a sense of smell or if that's